General quarters. All hands man your battle stations.
Welcome to WETSU, a Battleship New Jersey podcast. I'm your host, Marshall Spevak, CEO of the Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial. Today's episode is sponsored by ELEC 825, the labor employer cooperative of operating engineers 825, whose highly skilled members played a critical role in the 2024 dry docking and preservation of Battleship New Jersey. Today, the battleship once again had the honor of breaking the flag of today's WETSU guest, Rear Admiral Ken Blackmon, United States Navy. A Burlington County, New Jersey native, Admiral Blackmon was commissioned through Naval ROTC at George Washington University in 1989. He began his career as a surface warfare officer aboard the USS DAVID R, DD 971. On this Bruce-class destroyer, he served as a strike warfare officer, electrical officer, navigator, and administrative officer. Over the years, he's deployed 5 times in support of Operations Earnest Will, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Noble Eagle, and Enduring Freedom, sailing across nearly every major body of water the U.S. Navy operates in, from the Atlantic to the Pacific to the Arabian Gulf. After leaving active duty in 1993, he continued his service in the Navy Reserve, holding numerous staff and command assignments, including leadership of the Reserve Littoral Combat Ship Squadron 2, which we'll talk about a little bit later. His mobilizations include service with the U.S. Pacific Fleet, U.S. Central Command, and aboard USS America, LHA-6, lead ship in the new America-class amphibious assault ship, during her maiden historic transit around South America. As a flag officer, Admiral Blackmon has held numerous posts, including Deputy Commander, U.S. 3rd Fleet, Director of Maritime Operations at U.S. Fleet Forces Command, and now as Vice Commander of U.S. Fleet Forces, where he's leading preparations for the Navy Marine Corps' 250th celebrations this fall. Of course, Admiral Blackmon is a special connection to our ship. He chose the Battleship New Jersey as the site of his promotion ceremony to Rear Admiral. He also joined us on board last November to help us celebrate and honor the crew of USS John Basilone, DDG 122, during their commissioning week. Admiral Blackmon, it's a pleasure to welcome you back on board the Big J, and welcome to WETSU.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
So let me start off with you where we start off with everybody, and that's why did you join the Navy?
Well, so my dad was a naval officer back around 1960, and so there is a little bit of legacy there. But also, Navy paid for college for me. So going to GW and getting a degree there in Washington, D.C. was really
I think this is back-to-back episodes with officers who graduated from George Washington NROTC.
Really?
So the last one, Commander Skip Leeson, who was on board here, he was the commander of the reserve unit for the battleship. First ever time the battleship had a reserve unit.
Okay.
And during the Beirut campaign, they actually had the largest peacetime crew relief operation in Navy history. They brought over 700 guys over to Beirut and completely changed out the crew for 30 days when the ship was on station for over 170 straight days. So a great, coming from great stock at GW and ROTC. Of course, you also grew up not far from here in Chesterfield in Burlington County. How did your New Jersey roots sort of shape your path to joining the Navy?
Well, I went to high school with a bunch of kids from the Air Force, a bunch of dependents from the Air Force Base there, McGuire Air Force Base. And so that history of service, was something I saw every day as people came in and out of Northern Burlington Regional High School.
After you were commissioned, you began your career, as I mentioned, on a Spruance-class destroyer, USS DAVID R, DD 971. You wore several hats at that time. When you think back to your time as a young junior officer, is there anything that sort of particularly stands out to you from your early days as a SWO?
So DAVID R, I think it was a really unique time. I went into the Navy Reserve, the NROTC, under President Reagan's 600 ship Navy. So there was quite an expansion in the number of students going through ROTC programs, and just ships being built, and of course the USS New Jersey coming back, back in action for Desert Storm. So having that opportunity to get aboard the destroyer, she had just come out of the yards with our brand new vertical launch system, and I was strike warfare officer. So that was training that the Navy provided to me to be able to understand the Tomahawk weapon system and be able to serve in that capacity. So, when I got aboard the David R. Ray in 1990, we were expecting to go do escort operations in the Arabian Gulf. So we were one of 5 U.S. ships in the Gulf when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. And so we were actually just about 20 miles off the coast of Kuwait when the invasion occurred. And, that kind of made it real.
Yeah, certainly.
Well, that, hey, I'm actually serving in the Navy and, in harm's way there in the Arabian Gulf. And so we could see the dogfights, the aircraft on the radar. And so we were a little bit nervous until we got the aircraft carrier there 5 days later. So those first 5 days we had really been orienting towards Iran as the adversary. And so trying to get a picture of what the Iraqis had in terms of capabilities, we started to see that, we could have been outgunned by them if their aircraft with their anti-surface missiles were all operational, which probably was not the case. But it was a little tenuous until the carrier got into the area there.
And how was it for you as a young junior officer just commissioned out of college, out of NRTC? You're now being thrust into a leadership position on board a ship. Of course, now, as you noted, in an active theater. How is that sort of I like to ask people their transition from either the academy or from ROTC, get their feelings on that sort of life transition, but also career transition from being a student to being in a leadership position.
Yeah, it is interesting because you're like one day you're hanging out at GW, going to class and doing ROTC classes and marching and all that kind of stuff. And then boom, you're leading a group of, I think I had about 20 sailors that were my responsibility. So I think what was really valuable was, number one, the training provided up to that point was valuable and helpful. So there were experiences, vignettes, discussions with other junior officers around leadership challenges and how to navigate through those. The other piece is just the other leaders that had more time under the belt, that, it was a relatively small wardroom, maybe about 15 officers. So there was a lot of kind of cross talk among the JOs. And I think in a lot of respects, I was a single guy. I was happy-go-lucky. I didn't really recognize the risks that what we were facing there. But fortunately, we had, it was a great ship. It was the Tomahawk weapon system was probably the most formidable weapon system we had in the Arabian Gulf at the time.
After 4 years of active service, you face a decision that many in your situation face. Do you leave the Navy or do you continue your career and your service in the reserves? What led you to your decision and ultimately staying in the reserves and making that a second career?
Sure. Yeah. So coming out of the gate, having spent 4 years on active duty, I really did have to do some soul searching. I really loved the Navy, still love the Navy, but kind of saw that I was NAVADMIN, navigator and administrative officer on board the ship, which was like the premier job for JO, for a junior officer. And I was well regarded by the leadership on the ship. And I thought, if I'm going to go out, this is probably the right time to do it. So I decided to transition to the reserve component, head back home. I also had been on active duty in California. My family was all back in New Jersey. Lost 3 grandparents while I was on active duty. Only really got back, I think, for one because of operational commitments. So decided, I'm going to head back home. I'm going to, immediately get connected up with the reserve program, which I did at the Navy Yard here in Philadelphia before they shut the reserve program down there. And so it was a tough decision, but I'm so glad I continued to serve. I really love it.
And your time on the Ray was a Spruance class destroyer. How did the old Spruance class sort of line up with today's Arleigh Burke class?
David R. Ray did not have phased array radar, which was kind of the latest and greatest. And actually, I think the Ticonderoga came out, which was our first Aegis class ship, right around when I got commissioned in '89. And so the capabilities, it did have capabilities, anti-submarine warfare capabilities, had the strike warfare capabilities, 2 5-inch guns, and could carry a helicopter. It actually typically would carry 2 helicopters. So I think they retired those ships too soon. They could have kept them online. They were really, but they did not have the latest and greatest radar systems, which I think was kind of the death knell. So the current DDGs are really our workhorses of the Navy. We have a lot of those ships. And so as I see the DDGs, the Arleigh Burke class ships, and see kind of the evolution of those, I see destroyer, tin can sailors, tin can Navy there.
Yes, absolutely. As mentioned in your introduction, you've served in pretty much every major theater of operations during your time in the Navy. Was there any particular deployment or operation that you've been a part of, which sort of left the strongest impression on you, on your career, and maybe helped shape your career to becoming a flag officer?
Well, I think the time in the Arabian Gulf during Desert Storm was a telling period, and the follow-on deployment in 1992 to the Red Sea, when we did 66 boardings of merchant ships going to Iraq. So I was navigator for then Commander John Harvey, retired 4-star Admiral John Harvey, was actually former Fleet Forces commander. And so he was an important part of that early experiences and that time. But some of the great, very cool things that we got to do, the best diving I ever did was in the Red Sea. I dove in the Philippines, I dove in Guam, dove in Hawaii, and the Red Sea diving was really
It was the best.
And and then port visits, port visits to Thailand, to Hong Kong, to Singapore, even time in Hawaii. I was able to link up with a high school buddy of mine who was in the Army, who was stationed at Schofield Barracks. So he and I spent a little bit of time together while I was out there.
Your career seems to be the epitome of join the Navy, see the world. And that's fantastic. Of course, in 2019, you were promoted to flag rank to Rear Admiral, and you held your promotion ceremony right here on board the Battleship New Jersey. What led you to the decision to have your promotion ceremony on board here?
Well, there were a lot of things that kind of came together for that. First, when I was on David R. Ray out of Long Beach, California, across the pier was the USS New Jersey.
Was that the first time you ever saw the battleship?
That was. First time ever I'd seen the battleship. So, and I remember in surface warfare officer school, a couple of the guys going to the battleship, they were going to go for UKOs on the battleship. There was quite a bit of excitement for them, being able to come to the New Jersey. So I didn't get the tap for that, but was across the pier. And it's interesting because I remember specifically like a point in time where I'm officer of the deck on the David R. Ray, and there's like oily waste on like a sheen on top of the water, and the New Jersey's blaming the David R. Ray. And we're like seeing it, like coming out of the New Jersey, and so it was a big ship. Even next to the David R. Ray for sure. So it did have, and my friend from Surface Warfare Officer School, I would go over and see him on the New Jersey when it was in active service.
So you came onto the ship during the active service. Okay, yes. Wow. Awesome.
Absolutely. So now I didn't get to like this part of the ship. I I got to the wardroom probably is it, but it was neat to see the ship and see her get underway. So I spent 3 years there in Long Beach, so got to see quite a bit of the USS New Jersey there. So I really followed it as the process went to making the New Jersey a museum. There was no better place to do it, really, and it was perfect weather, everything, pre-COVID, and so it was really awesome.
Captain, United States Navy, arriving.
Of course, following your promotion to Rear Admiral, you were assigned Deputy Commander, U.S. Third Fleet. Of course, again, the relationship between the Battleship New Jersey and the Third Fleet as the flagship of the Third Fleet, our fellow New Jersey native, Fleet Admiral Bull Halsey, commanded the Third Fleet during World War II in the South Pacific. Obviously, you're a New Jersey guy coming into a role with such legends like Admiral Halsey and serving on a Spruance class destroyer, of course, Admiral Spruance, who took this ship as his flagship when they rotated it back and forth between the Third Fleet and the Fifth Fleet. So you're coming in, you're becoming Deputy Commander, U.S. Third Fleet. You're a New Jersey guy. How was that experience for you? And of course, the sort of Jersey connection.
That it was meaningful to me. And I mentioned it in my comments about the fact that, I'm going to be Deputy Commander at Third Fleet. And it's always interesting when you look at history and you see like the orders written by Admiral Halsey or Admiral Spruance that's very succinct to the point, go take out these adversaries. And so New Jersey has done quite a bit for the nation and certainly for our Navy. When you think about all of these just phenomenal leaders that have come, so Admiral Halsey and John Basilone.
In 2023, you were named to your current post as Vice Commander, U.S. Fleet Forces. Can you tell us a little bit about your current role and what a Vice Commander at Fleet Forces Command is responsible for?
Absolutely. So I am the Senior Reserve Advisor to the Commander at Fleet Forces Command. Fleet Forces Command, my boss there really wears 3 hats. So he is responsible for all ships, submarines, and aircraft on the East Coast. And so in his Title 10 responsibilities for the Chief of Naval Operations. And so we generate forces and train crews and get them ready to go to the fight. He's also the naval component to Strategic Command. So it's responsible for all of the ballistic missile submarines in the U.S. inventory and their deployments and their, contribution to deterrence and to the triad. And then finally, he's the naval component to Northern Command, which does homeland defense and defense support of civil authorities. So I really support him in these efforts wherever I need to plug in. As the Reserve 2-star, I work very closely with the Deputy Commander in determining hey, when's the best times for me to come in and augment the senior leadership and what are the specific efforts that I can lend my hand to. So we have about 1,000 reserve sailors that support Fleet Forces. And that runs the gamut of from tactical level training that we do through our Strike Group 4 team to our Maritime Operations Center, Fleet Forces. So we provide about 40% of the manpower for fighting from our Maritime Operations Center at the fleet level. And so we really augment the team there. So 2 big things that I've done for the Navy or Fleet Forces recently. One is I was the exercise director for a large scale exercise 2025. So that just completed back in August. And that is an exercise, the global exercise where we have all 10 of the maritime operations centers across the globe communicating and working in exercise together. So most of our Navy exercises and most of our even joint exercises are very kind of stovepipe to an area of responsibility, like the Pacific Ocean area, Indo-PACOM, or in Europe. This one really spans the whole globe, and we look at those gaps and seams between the maritime operations centers, those commanders at 6th Fleet and 3rd Fleet and PAC Fleet and Navier, and then Fleet Forces is the 2nd Fleet, 4th Fleet. Having all of those, all the fleets really communicating with each other and coordinating efforts in really what we have in this kind of resource constrained environment. It allows us to do some of that detailed level planning of how do we best utilize our forces across the world. So that's my kind of operational hat that I serve Fleet Forces. And that exercise went really well. We had the acting CNO come visit. Senator Kane, Representative Kiggins came and saw what we're doing there, as well as many other senior Navy leaders interested in how the Navy executes that exercise. In addition, and part of even why I'm here right now is that we're helping to plan the Navy's 250th birthday. And so we have a team of, now it's the cast of thousands, really working on the Navy's 250th birthday. But I've been involved for about 18 months in that effort for Fleet Forces, and just, breaking down barriers and looking at opportunities of what we can do to celebrate, what only comes once, the 250th birthday of the Navy.
Operating engineers are the men and women that move mountains. And the Engineers Labor Employer Cooperative, ELEC, puts them to work. They create opportunities for the men, women, and union signatory contractors of Local 825. Repaving our roads, keeping our homes bright and warm, and even building our favorite team stadium. We understand infrastructure. That's why ELEC and Local 825 are ready to get to work.
As if you weren't busy enough finishing a global exercise, the 250th anniversary, as you mentioned, is coming up, which we're all incredibly excited about. October 9th to the 16th, celebrating 250 years of our Navy. Can you share sort of what this milestone means to the service, and what the public can expect from this week-long celebration that's happening in Philadelphia, New Jersey?
Absolutely. And we are, the Navy and the Marine Corps are super excited to be coming to Philadelphia, really our birthplace. So the Navy was founded here October 13th, 1775. This 250th birthday means a lot to our sailors. And our sailors are out there in harm's way, and ships that were trained by our team at Fleet Forces went and have taken down missiles aimed at Israel after being in the Red Sea for 5 days. They had flawless execution. And so there are sailors out forward where we like to call ourselves the away game, where we want to keep wars off of our shores. And by providing that deterrence presence out there, we can really keep the peace and maintain the deterrence.
As Admiral Nimitz has famously said, it's the function of the Navy to carry the war to the enemy so that it will not be fought on U.S. soil. Which is something you also said on board here during your promotion ceremony to Admiral.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, definitely. So these sailors are going to kind of come into Philadelphia area, South Jersey, Delaware, the tri-state area here, and we're going to celebrate. And this is more than a fleet week. I've been banging the drum with the planning team that this is more than a fleet week. We want to really show Philadelphia, show the tri-state area, show the nation how much this area can supports the Navy and Marine Corps, and then how much we value the partnership over all these years, 250 years. And the Navy is still here in the Philadelphia area, and I know the most visible sign was the Navy Yard when it was active, but we still do have several commands around the Philadelphia area. Philadelphia is really important. This area is the birthplace of the Aegis weapon system. And so that Aegis radar over in Morristown, the ship in the cornfield, we call it. So there's a lot of meaning. And we have a lot of sailors that'll be coming home. So sailors that are out there serving, because this area provides a lot of sailors for our ships as well.
Well, part of this podcast is not only to, highlight the battleship, of course, but to also highlight our active duty military in the state of New Jersey. We had Captain Smith, who's the CO at Weapons Station Earl a few episodes ago, and our, of course, the Adjutant General I mentioned to you before. And we're really trying to highlight, not just in the Navy, but in all service branches, the active component and really the importance to this state for what we sort of give back in terms of national defense and national security. In that regard, we could not be more thrilled that the Navy is coming here. The Marine Corps is coming here to celebrate the 250th. I mentioned in your introduction that you were in command of the reserve component of LCS Squadron 2, reported down in Mayport, because as a part of the 200th celebration, the Battleship New Jersey will play host to a Freedom class littoral combat ship, the USS Billings, LCS-15, who is coming to nest itself port quarter outboard the battleship, which for us is just a real tremendous honor to have an active ship come see us and come nest alongside us for tours between October 10th and the 15th. Can you tell us a little bit more about the different ships coming to the area for the celebration? And of course, I certainly would love to hear a little bit about your time at the LCS Squadron and of course, that same squadron, which is taking part in the two.
Sure. Yes. So I actually stood up the reserve LCS squadron.
Okay.
Down there. So we call it a plank owner. So I was a plank owner for that, and working with our active duty counterparts. And LCS is a unique ship, one that we said, hey, let's see if we can make some littoral ships that are not, a Fortune and high tech, ones that can operate close to shore, be able to provide capabilities. And so we're bringing two of those ships up here. We've gone through fits and starts with LCS, have LCS right now providing support to the southern border operations in the Gulf of America. And so the Billings, the Cooperstown is coming. They'll be moored over at Penn's Landing. We'll have an Arleigh class destroyer. The USS Lassen is currently slated to be at the Holt terminal here,
Gloucester City
side. And then the Arlington LPD is scheduled to be at Pier 4. And then we have a couple, our Coast Guard brothers are bringing two Coast Guard cutters. Our midshipmen are bringing two yard patrol craft. One will be at Penn's Landing, one will be at Pier 4, and they're also bringing two 44-foot sailboats. So we'll have midshipmen, coming into the area. We'll have time that they'll be going to visit schools and talk about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and we'll have aviation demonstrations. We'll have an aviation static display in the Navy Yard, along with Marine Corps static displays. We'll have static displays in Independence Hall area there, in the grassy area in front of there. So there's a lot of really great events that are going to occur. The Apex will be our birthday celebration. We're so appreciative of the city and all of the non-federal entities that have helped support the Navy coming home to Philadelphia area here. And so we'll see a parade that'll occur on Monday, October 13th, from around City Hall down to Independence Hall. And then we'll have a celebration with the Blue Angels, and we'll cut a cake.
For that, yes.
And so we have really a lot of exciting things on tap. So come out and visit the ships, talk to sailors, find out where they're from, what they do in the Navy. Our sailors really love to share the talent and innovation that we have.
And the most important thing, all of the ships that you just mentioned, all the ships that we're talking about, all the active ships are completely free of charge to come take tours of. The hours and the information we will certainly make available in the description of this episode, and we'll be putting out on, of course, our social media. I know I've been hearing about Homecoming 250, the 250th birthday, for probably the last 5 years here at the Battleship. Our friend George Leone has been leading the charge on this for when this was just an idea in his head. Actually, I remember him talking about it here, and somehow 5 years later, we are here. At the right at the precipice of it. So, as you mentioned, the Blue Angel flyover, which we're excited about. Parades, picnics, concerts, fireworks on the river, also at the evening of the 13th. And of course, the battleship's got a ton of events, including our Black Dragon Smoker that we're really excited about from, as you mentioned, the midshipmen, from the Naval Academy, the boxing team, and just a lot of really cool events that are happening during that week, which we're just really excited about. So October 9th to the 16th, more than a Fleet Week, and a ton of events, and we're going to have all of that information available for the listeners and for friends of the battleship to come out and really take part in these celebrations. Because having been a part of this for a while, I can say, the Navy has put in a lot of effort into this. Marine Corps has put a lot of effort into this, and we here at the battleship have put a lot of effort into making sure that this 250th celebration really goes off without a hitch.
And I'll say the celebration continues. The naval service, the U.S. Navy, U.S. Marine Corps, were both founded here in 1775. And so that celebration will continue to the Marine Corps. Yeah. But the Marines will be in force here with us, bringing our amphibious ship area with the Marines and their static displays and their expertise. So, yeah. And really, two other things I'd just like to share. One is that, our unique ability are the sailors and Marines, and really all of our service members, our competitive advantage against the adversary, that we have really talented youth. And part of our effort here will be to share with youth that are up and comers of what service, above self can really mean, and what opportunities the U.S. Navy, U.S. Marine Corps can present to young people. Like you said, I've seen the world. I've been to 41 countries, and most of them because of my Navy service. So it's been really fortunate. The other piece is this area here technologically has provided great advantage to our Navy and Marine Corps with the technological innovations, like I mentioned, with Aegis, with some of the other small companies in this area, the shipyard. There's discussions with them on what we can do to really enhance our maritime industrial base. And this area is really a huge part of that. Yeah. So it's a great opportunity.
Of course, I don't want to forget mentioning, of course, you mentioned the Marine Corps, and November 11th is our big Marine Corps Day here. We have our Veterans Day ceremony in the morning, and we're very honored that we'll be having Colonel Harvey Barnum Jr., who's a Marine Medal of Honor recipient from Vietnam, and the namesake of the DDG 124, which I believe is out on sea trials right now. So he'll be sort of headlining our Marine Corps celebration. And then on the 11th, following that ceremony, we're going to be doing a little ribbon cutting for our Marine detachment, our MARDET berthing space, which we're finally reopening for the first time properly as a museum to give a little bit of life on board as a Marine as a part of our MARDET. So we're also definitely looking forward to celebrating the Marine Corps for their birthday in November as well. 250 years seems to have gone by quickly. When you sort of think to the next 250 years, and certainly more so in the near future, what do you think really sort of defines the future of the Navy?
There is really a strong effort right now to incorporate unmanned and artificial intelligence into how we do operations. So I see great strides with that. My hope for the next 250 years is that the Navy, the U.S. Navy is so strong and formidable that, we deter any future wars.
Peace through strength.
So peace through strength. Absolutely.
We started doing a little bit of a lightning round with guests. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and I just want you to sort of give me the first thing that pops to the top of your head. If you were at sea deployments, if you could serve on any ship or any class of ship in 2025, which would that be?
Oh, boy. Well, I would say the New Jersey I want to serve on, but of course, she's not out to sea. I think, our workhorses, the Arleigh Burke DDGs, those are really impressive to go aboard and to see operate. So I have enjoyed.
Yeah, we got a nice short tour. You had mentioned that we talked to the John Basilone commissioning earlier, which I was very proud to serve on the commissioning committee for. along with our sister ship, New Jersey, Virginia class submarine just before then. A really impressive ship, really impressive systems that they have on board. And it is the workhorse of the Navy, as you said, and we just keep churning them out. Hopefully we'll continue to do that at even more of a rapid pace, as you mentioned, the shipbuilding build up. So you had mentioned 41 countries, I think you said, right? What is your favorite Liberty port?
I would say Phuket, Thailand.
Okay.
It was pretty neat place to go, and might have been my first overseas port visit.
Okay, so maybe it was memorable, stuck with you. What is your one must-pack item for life at sea?
Oh, well, Dramamine, when, so
That's a good answer.
I learned early on that when I was navigator, I had the weather guys, and they'd come down and say, okay, it's going to be a little rough when we get underway. And I was not,
you were not prepared for how rough that might be.
And especially on a destroyer.
Yeah.
So I definitely would, take advantage of the drone and to stay moving. That, and then back in the day, my wife now even says, like, you are obsessed with the mail. I'm like, well, when you get mail like once every 60 days to see, and it's mail call, you're like running down to get your letters and the packages and things. Those were always very special too.
People love checking out the post office on board here on the battleship.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, you got a dental office, you got a medical office, you got a post office. And I said, people think of those type of places in terms of an aircraft carrier. We had all of those different functions here on board as well. And people love to check out those places. You're, of course, a Jersey guy, so I'll have to ask you the ultimate Jersey question, which is pork roll or Taylor ham?
Oh my gosh, pork roll.
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, who calls it Taylor ham? Where are they?
Yeah,
they up
people
north?
up north somewhere. Certainly not around here.
And Eagles, Flyers.
Yes.
Sixers.
Perfect. Love it. You've had, as we talked about, many special moments aboard the Battleship New Jersey. You've been on board during when she was in commission. You've been on board during your museum era. You've come on board quite a bit. When you walk on our decks here, what sort of goes through your mind here at the battleship?
Well, I do want to say that one of my prized possessions is my teak name tag that you guys gave me at the Barcelona event. And I was mentioning to my colleague that, man, I wish I had put that on today to come aboard. Just knowing the history of who walked these decks and how many sailors, both famous and sailors that should be famous because they did extraordinary things, is really inspiring. So, and the museum is impeccably kept, and it's awesome that, you're expanding to open up new areas for people to see what the Navy was like. And this really spans such a big part of our history back to World War II, when it was designed all the way through my active service. So it's really something.
So this is the WETSU podcast. WETSU is it stands for We Eat This Stuff Up, or slightly more than that. It was the rallying cry of our last skipper, Admiral Ron Tucker, and it was emblazoned on our battle flag, a replica of which is behind me. It basically stands for doing grueling work with a smile on your face. We eat this stuff up, throw more at us, give us more. Any particular sort of WETSU moments that stand out from your time in the service?
It's the salty talk is something you're certainly used to on board ship. But, the times that I've been most challenged have been times when coming out of those experiences made me a better person, and so I remember specifically being in a bucket brigade in the Arabian Gulf, 100-degree temperatures, maybe 110-degree temperatures, trying to move stores on board the ship. And it was all hands on deck, so JOs participated as well. And so they were some challenging times, but coming out of those experiences just made me better. So wish I had the same physique I had back then.
Admiral, finally, before we let you go, obviously with the Homecoming 250 coming up, our celebration of the Navy and Marine Corps. Anything else that you wanted to share and sort of leave listeners with of what to expect, what to look forward to, something that maybe you're looking forward to the most as part of the celebration?
Well, there has been loads of planning in preparation for this celebration, and this is more than a fleet week. And we would love to have all of the citizenry come out and see the sailors, see the ships, see the Marines, see their equipment, talk to them, find out what they do for a living and how they contribute to our national defense. And so we're going to be all over. We're going to be all over the area. We're going to have aircraft in the air. We're going to have sailors up there eating cheesesteaks and, doing tug of wars, a dive tank. There's going to be fun for everyone. And so I really encourage people to come out, see your Navy. We don't get to come to this area as often as we would like because of operational commitments. But, we certainly look to celebrate in our birthplace with those that are descendants from our forefathers.
So come out, see the ships, tour the ships. But of course, as the Admiral noted earlier, the most important thing that really sets us apart is our sailors, and come out and meet our sailors and hear their stories, and certainly their stories of service. So Rear Admiral Ken Blackmon, thank you so much for joining us today aboard the Battleship, for sharing a little bit about your journey of service and leadership in the Navy. We're grateful for your insights and your work in helping to prepare us for the upcoming Navy Marine Corps 250th anniversary. For a complete picture of all the events surrounding Homecoming 250, you can visit us at battleshipnewjersey.org, at homecoming250.org, or of course at navy.mil/Navy. And of course, to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to this episode of WETSU, a Battleship New Jersey podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe, rate, and share the podcast so more people can connect with the stories behind the steel, our Navy, our veterans, and of course, this incredible battleship. Thank you very much for listening.
Operating engineers are the men and women that move mountains. And the Engineers Labor Employer Cooperative, ELEC, puts them to work. They create opportunities for the men, women, and union signatory contractors of Local 825. Repaving our roads, keeping our homes bright and warm, and even building our favorite team stadium. We understand infrastructure. That's why ELEC and Local 825 are ready to get to work.